library room with me, so I'm not just in here talking to myself, which is great. And then we have a lot of people logged on to the webinar part of this, which makes it great also. Today, Ryan Miller from Turnitin is with us, and he is a great guy, and he's going to go through all of the new features of Turnitin. And just so you know, we have not turned on Turnitin just yet. So that we will be turning it on May 15th. That's the first day of the summer term. So you can expect to see these changes happening then. So just so you know, if you're trying to follow along with us today, you're not going to be able to see a lot of the things that Ryan is showing us just because we haven't turned it on just yet. So as the May 15th approaches, we will be sending out resources and video recording of today's session as reference to the new features. So with that, Ryan, if you're ready, we're ready to rock and roll.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's time here today. I promise you I'm not going to waste it. Like Jessica mentioned, my name is Ryan Miller. I'm a customer success consultant here at Turnitin. Today, our plan was to walk through the classic view of Turnitin versus our new user interface called Feedback Studio. Not to worry, it's all very much very similar, just a little more streamlined and a couple extra bells and whistles in there for you too. Please feel free to speak up if you have any questions. I think everybody's muted right now, so just keep that in mind if you start talking and we don't hear you. Just make sure and check to see if you are muted and unmute that. You don't have to wait till the end if you've got questions. Let's keep it as interactive as possible. I am recording this so that you can come back and listen to this whenever you want or watch whenever you want. The first thing I'm going to do here is go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So hopefully this looks familiar to you. If anybody has used Turnitin in the past, this is what we call our classic view. For anybody who hasn't used Turnitin and maybe they're planning to and this is their first chance seeing it, this is the older view called Turnitin. We have changed from this view to this type of view. Let me go ahead and maximize this. And you can see up here on the left, it's branded Feedback Studio. The main reason we did this was because back in the day, our company is called Turnitin, our product was called Turnitin, and that was all well and good, but now we have a handful of products that we sell and work with. So we wanted to change the name so that the name is no longer the same as the company. And so we're calling it Feedback Studio, just because of the amount of feedback you can actually give a student in the way of comments, voice comments, quick marks, using rubrics, actual grading, everything you can do, all of that inside of Feedback Studio. So let me jump back really quickly to the screen we were just on. So this is the classic view. You're probably used to seeing you've got your originality score here. This particular paper matched 100% because I just copied and pasted some things off the internet. Typically, your ranges will be much smaller than that, anywhere from 0 to 20 to 30% or higher. But this is the originality score with our match overview over here. We also have some smaller action buttons down here on the right. We also have our ability to switch to grade marks, which then, oh, sorry about that. I've actually been logged out of there. Okay, so give me 1 second here, and I'm going to, well, let's just jump into Feedback Studio. So as you remember, we had those buttons up here on the left. We had the ability to switch from our similarity view, our match overview. We also had the ability to jump over to our grade mark view where we could add our quick marks and comments. And then you also had a peer mark button. I'm not sure how many people used peer mark assignments, but you can actually no longer find that inside Feedback Studio. You'll actually find peer mark assignments elsewhere. We're working on Desire to Learn right now, and we're going to see this in a little bit when we walk through some of the optional settings when creating the assignment. Right now, it does say that you can create a peer mark assignment, but it's just not ready for Desire to Learn yet. We're hoping by the end of the summer. But you would access that through Desire to Learn, peer mark assignments, rather than through Feedback Studio or through the classic view like you might have been used to. So for those of you that used to use peer mark, you're not going to find it in Feedback Studio any longer. So you remember we have those smaller action buttons down here on the right. All of those buttons, everything can still be found in Feedback Studio. It's just now within these layers. And so if we click on this top button here, we have our active layers. So right now we have our grading layer, we have our similarity layer, and we have our E-rater layer. We can turn them all off if we want to, and you can see things changing. If you leave them on, you'll be able to see everything from the E-rater to similarity score matching to our grading comments. You can see here's a quick mark that I had added earlier. If you remember in the old classic view, you could have similarity on, but it was similarity by itself. Or you could have grading on, and it was grading and E-rater on at the same time. Now you can have all three layered on top of each other, so you can see it all at once. That's one of the big differences. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this on. Before I jump into these layers, I'm going to talk a little bit about what else you can find. You might have remembered there was a roadmap button in the classic view that allowed you to give us feedback whenever you had issues, or if you would like something to be an option to be added. Oh, can I just ask that everybody goes ahead and mutes? There we go. Thank you very much. You can now go to this little question mark here, and you can see some different popular articles and links to interpreting the similarity port, to rubrics and grading, to the different layers. And here's the bottom button there where you can provide us feedback. So we're always trying to make Turnitin or Feedback Studio a little bit better. So if you can provide us any feedback that helps us do it, that would be great. Even if it's the fact that you don't like how something works and we can change it. Whatever you've got, please just go ahead and give us that feedback here. That would be great. You also remember you have the ability down in the bottom left-hand corner of the classic view to actually print or to look at the timestamp information, word count, all that type of stuff. You can find that now in the gear button, and we're going to look at that in a little later. But pretty much everything you found in the classic view you can now still find in Feedback Studio. There's just a few little differences as you can see a user interface change. Over here on the left, this little thumbnail, if you open that up, it helps you toggle through the paper. If you don't like scrolling up or down, you can move that way as well. Okay. Any questions so far about what we've covered? Okay. Just remember, you might be muted if you're talking right now, but please feel free to speak up as we go along here. So I'm going to start with the first layer, which is our grading layer. So I'm going to click on that, and it gives us our quick marks. When you come in for the first time, you're going to have these sets of quick marks here: commonly used, composition, composition marks, format, and punctuation. My set, test, and test set are all sets that I've created for myself, my own original sets. So if we go to commonly used, this is going to give us a list of commonly used quick marks. So as you're grading your paper inside Feedback Studio, which you may remember from using Classic, is you can simply just drag and drop any of these quick marks that you want to anywhere in the paper. Very simple. If you want to add a comment right in or an inline text, you can actually click into the paper itself, and it'll give you these three options. Here's an inline text. You can write right into the page if you want to. We can grab it and move it around. If we click into the text again, we can now leave a comment. You can format your comments. You can even add links if you want to. Your comment will sit right there. You can move it anywhere you want to. Then you also have the ability to click in and actually access quick marks from this route as well. So depending on how you like to navigate or how you like to use buttons, you can just simply click in and add a quick mark that way instead of having to drag and drop. Okay, you can always add a comment if you want to. You can even add a link if you need to do that as well. If you don't like or you want to go back to your comment, you can always click on it and just trash it and it will disappear. You also have the ability to highlight. So if you highlight, it'll bring you some other options, such as strike through. So we click on that, it will actually strike through that line for us. You can actually highlight and leave another comment, but this time it will highlight the comment. You can leave your comment. And now if you drag this anywhere on the page, you'll see that it creates a direct line to that highlighted area so that the students know exactly where that comment goes. And likewise, if we highlight again, our third option is the quick mark. So I could click on improper citation, move this wherever I want to, and it will create that line for us. If you find that you are leaving a comment and you're constantly leaving the same comment, you can actually convert this to a quick mark. And I can say, I can name this whatever I'd like. I can ask that or put this in my commonly used set, which we're in now. Click save. Now if I scroll down, you'll see I have my office hours quick mark that I can now drag and drop to anywhere on the paper. So it's very easy for you to add comments, very easy for you to create your own quick marks, and you can move them around the paper wherever you'd like. Any questions? Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you here is this little gear. You might remember from the classic view that this used to be a little wrench, but this actually allows you to open up your quick mark manager. So if we click on this little gear, it's going to open up the quick mark manager. As you can see here, these are all the quick marks found in my commonly used set that we were just looking at. If I click on this little button, I can create a new set. Call this test set 3. Oops, they actually type in there. Click save. And now it's part of my list down here. If I scroll, you can see I have test set 3. So now this is a blank set. So if I was to go through, let's just say these quick marks found in the commonly used set, delete, for example, I can click add to set, choose test set 3, and now I've added that quick mark to test set 3, my set that I just created. If I don't want to have to go through each of these sets to pull out the quick marks I want, I can click on all. That'll load up all of the quick marks that we have, and you can scroll through them, and you can drag and drop, or you can add these as you see fit. I'll add this to test set 3, add this to test set 3, and you can go through all of our different quick marks, and you can add as many as you want to your own set. The nice thing you can also do is you can download this set and share with a colleague who can then upload this set into their account and have that set of quick marks available to them as well. Okay, if I want to just create a quick mark inside the manager, I can just click the little plus sign, give it a title, and add my comment and click save. And that's how easy it is to create a quick mark inside the manager. And if you remember, we can also create a quick mark inside the paper by just converting it to a quick mark. Okay, so now if I go to my test set 3 and bring that up, here are those different quick marks that I added. Obviously there's not a lot, but now I can use my own set and drag and drop those wherever I want. Any questions about the quick marks before I move on to the feedback summary portion? Okay, please remember you might be muted. So if you did just ask a question and I didn't hear it, it's because you're probably muted. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click on feedback summary. You can see here you've got two options. You can add up to a 3-minute voice comment if you want to, or you can leave a summative text comment up to 5,000 characters. Again, you can format it or add a link if you want to. The next layer, or next part of the grading layer rather, is our rubric and form layer. So here you can see I've attached a rubric to this assignment. I attached a macroeconomic rubric. Obviously not the correct rubric for me to use, but it will suffice. You can see here's my rubric, and when you create an assignment, you can add your own Turnitin rubric. Keep in mind there is a difference between a desire to learn rubric and a Turnitin rubric. If you add a D2L rubric, you're not going to be able to see it inside of Turnitin. You're going to want to make sure that you add your own Turnitin rubric so that it's visible within Feedback Studio. Okay, so here we have our rubric. You can see I have thesis, argument, key concepts, evidence, and conclusion. You might remember from the classic view, these were buttons. Now it's a slider for accessibility issues. and you can just drag, slide that for their grade. And then once you have your grades chosen, you can click Apply to Grade, and you'll see this 88 change to a 56. Now, it's not set in stone. If you say, okay, the rubric may have said 56, but I think it's really a 61, you can go in and change it if you want to. If this is too small of a rubric view for you, you can click on these little arrows and expand it into a new window. And then you'll be able to see your full rubric, and you can grade it by just clicking on the box. You can see our score tallying down here in the left. And if I click Apply to Grade, it will apply that grade, and our 61 is now an 80. Okay, I got to that by clicking on these little arrows here, and that opens up the full-size rubric so that you can move through it like that. Another nice thing you can do if you're a rubric user is you can actually assign criterion to your comments. So if I was to add, let's say, or if I was to actually click and create a comment, say, good first try. I want to assign this rubric criterion, and I want to assign it to the thesis. So I'm going to click on thesis. Oops. Now you can see that rubric criterion has been assigned to thesis. If I go back to my rubric, you can see it's tallied up that criterion for me. So as I go through and I add these quick marks or add comments, I can assign criterion so that when it comes time for me to go through my rubric, I can see how many comments that I've added. And if I click on the little window, it'll open up and tell me all the different comments that I've added. Okay, I think I saw possibly a question here. The question was, I'm not sure if you can see this screen actually, but if I create a Turnitin rubric, how would I share it with students in D2L before they submit their assignment? We'd have to take a look at your D2L environment into one of the assignment inboxes. Some of our learning management systems, we integrate with many learning management systems, from Canvas to Blackboard to D2L. Some of them students can see before they have actually submitted a paper. Some they can't. I'm not sure what version of D2L you're on, so it's something we'd have to take a look at. There's a possibility that they can see it beforehand, but I hate to say 100% without looking at it. And maybe that's something Jessica and I can take a look at some point, and we can let you know. Sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head, but we can check. Oops, I think there's one more. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so that is the rubric. Let me jump into the rubric manager here. Jessica said, yes, we can look into it. So that's great. I'm going to open up the rubric manager. So here you can see, here's our rubric. Up here in the corner, we have this little question mark. We have a help button that'll take you to a web page within Turnitin.com, so you can take a look at those rubrics and grading forms if you want to learn a little bit more. Again, I just clicked on this little question mark to get to that page. Mainly, we have up here this little big button, just like we did in the Quick Mark Manager. So if I click on that, you can see I can create a brand new rubric from scratch. It'll give me this type of format, and I would just need to fill in the boxes. We also have the ability to use a grading form, which I'll show you here in a second. If you're not a rubric user, you can use a grading form. You can upload rubrics, and you can download rubrics to share with other people if you want to as well. So if I wanted to download a rubric, I could click on download. Oh, let's try that again. Okay, for some reason it's not allowing me right now. I'm not sure why that is, but so I will do my best to just explain it. So we offer the ability to download a rubric into your rubric manager. It will accept two formats. There is the .rbc format, which is what our rubrics that we provide you in our rubric library are in a .rbc format. Or you can download an Excel sheet, but it has to be properly formatted to be accepted. And we do offer you an example Excel template that you can fill out and then download as well. Let me jump to this page really quickly because I wanted to show you. Well, I'll just go straight to here to my rubric library. If you go to Turnitin.com and click on community, you can find our rubric library. You can see here we have a number of rubrics from persuasive paper to theme analysis, all the way through, and we have 8 pages of these rubrics. So if you come to this library and let's say persuasive paper, and we click on that, and we scroll down, you can see it gives me the ability to download this rubric in the .rbc format. So that's where you're going to find a formatted rubric to download. If you end up clicking on the rubric manager and if you're trying to download, it's only going to accept this format here or the .xls Excel sheet that has been properly formatted to accept that rubric. So just something to keep in mind. I'm trying to keep any frustration at bay. We're working on accepting more formats, but right now that is what we're looking at. So here you can see I have my macroeconomic rubric. I have other rubrics that I've loaded, actual writing, leadership. If I clicked on leadership, I could open that up. If I wanted to attach to this assignment, I could click attach. It will change that rubric in here for me, and now I will have this leadership reflection rubric attached to this assignment. If you're not a rubric user, we also have grading forms. So I created a grading form, and this one's called test grading form, and if I open it up, really, it's just the ability to create kind of a smaller version of a rubric. But here you can see I added my own criterion. I can add description if I want to. If I assign this to my paper and click confirm, my rubric in the paper or in the Feedback Studio is going to change to a grading form if I click close. So you can see what a grading form is. Really, it is the ability to say, okay, you got 20 points on your introduction, and you can add a comment. You got 15 on the body, 30, and so forth. And you can see it tallies it up for you. And if you click apply to grade, that's how the grading form works. So it's really up to you if you're a rubric user. If you'd like to use the grading form or nothing at all, you don't have to use any of these, but they are available for you. Any questions about the rubric manager or the grading form or anything that we just walked through there? Okay, if you think of something, just let me know. I'm going to move on to this similarity score.
Ryan, we've got one question. 1 second, please, sir.
Yes, sure.
So the question, Ryan, is the example that you're using is out of 100 points. And the question was, can we change that from being out of 100 points? And I'm going to go ahead and answer the question and just say when we've set it up in Dropbox, when it ships it over to Turnitin, that's where it gets that 100 points. So if you set it up in Dropbox as only being worth 50 points, then when it goes into Turnitin, it will have a score out of 50. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Anything else before I jump to the similarity score? Okay, so you can see here I'm on the second layer here, which is our similarity report score. If I open this up, you can see I've got 4 different options here. If I click on this, you can see it's going to give me my match overview. In this case, this is a paper where it's matched 100% because I grabbed it from the internet. Within that 100%, this is our largest match. If I drill into it, it's actually going to give me a list of any other matches that have matched within that, what I've copied and pasted into this paper. So you can see 45% matches with this website here. And here is this matching within the context of that article. If this is a little small and you'd like it to be larger, you can click on this little icon here for the full source view. And here you can see all the matching within this article. And I can always click on the link to open the whole thing up if I want to. So you might remember before in the classic view, you had your match overview, which just the match overview is a list of all of your largest matches. And then you also had a toggle button for all sources view. So now you still have your match overview button, and here's the all sources view. They're right next to each other, just like they were up here in the classic view. If I click on the all sources view, it's going to give me that same list, the giant list of all my sources. So maybe instead of it being 100% match, you might have 4 different matches here, all at 20%, 15%, 18%. And you can drill into each one of those and check out all the smaller sources within that larger match. Or you can click on all sources, so it lists out every single match, regardless of its size, for you to scroll through and take a look at. You'll notice some of these are from the internet. Some of them might be from publications or journals, and then some of them are from a student paper. So you can see this 10% of our match matched to a student who submitted this to the University of Southern Mississippi. This person submitted a paper that used 10% of this paper and submitted it to Syracuse. Now, they may have quoted this and cited it correctly, so it's not really an issue for that student. It's just letting you know that 10% of this paper that I turned in matches what this student submitted to Syracuse. Now, if you find an outside match, possibly 100% match, which would mean, wow, there's a good chance that someone gave their paper to another student, you can contact another university and ask that instructor to be able to see that student's paper. We obviously can't give you access to another student's paper at another institution, but you can ask for access if you want to. Doesn't mean they're going to give it to you, but you can ask for it. We can't force anybody. But keep in mind, when you do try and contact them, if you do, it's going to try and contact them with the email address that's associated with their account. So if they possibly were an adjunct at that student or at that institution and they no longer teach there, well, then you're not going to be able to get in contact with them. But that's really the best that we can do. And please feel free to try and reach out to them and contact them if need be. Okay. So if I found that I had a whole bunch of smaller matches down here that I just really don't care about. So down here, I've got these internet sources. I want to get rid of these sources and take them off my list altogether. I can click Exclude Sources, click the little box, and exclude them. Now they'll disappear off this list entirely. But if I want to bring them back, I can click on my similarity layer here. I can go to this circle with the slash through it through my excluded sources. Here's everything I just excluded, and I can restore them back one by one or multiple times, or just click the Restore All button, and they all go right back to my All Sources list. And you'll see them all down here at the bottom. Okay, that's how easy it is to exclude anything you want to off of the source list. The next button we have here is Filters and Settings. If we click on this, you have the ability, and so do your students for that matter, to come in and click Exclude Quotes or Exclude Bibliography, or possibly even exclude small word matches of maybe 3 or less. And then you can click Apply Changes. It will rerun a match overview, and you can see now my 100% dropped to 99 because I filtered out quotes, and I filtered out small word matches and bibliography. Now, I didn't have a bibliography here, so that didn't matter, but it was quotes that actually dropped out, and that dropped me 1%. So if it's a research paper, this could actually amount to quite a bit of similarity. And you as the instructor or even the student can go in and reapply those changes just to see what that score would be if you took those out. Now, when you create an assignment and you're choosing all your assignment options, you can choose to exclude this material on a global assignment level, but you also have the ability, as you can see here, to do this on a paper-by-paper basis. So it's completely up to you. When it comes to excluding the sources or the word matches, you can see it's very easy to see that this is going to exclude small matches of 3 words or less, right? This, however, percentage is a little trickier. So remember that when we talk about percentages inside Feedback Studio, we're talking about word count. So if you have a 1,000-word paper and you exclude 1%, that's a 10-word match. That could be considerable. So something to keep in mind. I usually tell people to stick to excluding by word size or number of words, but you do have that option. And then if I want to go back to what it originally was, I can uncheck these, click Don't Exclude by Size, click on Apply Changes, and it goes back to my original 100%. So that is the similarity layer. Any questions about what we just walked through? Okay, we can come back to it. If you think of something, just let me know. The next layer here you can see is the ETS rater. So the ETS Rater is a third party that we partner with, artificial intelligence, that is going to automatically run through your paper. And if I click on this layer, it's going to automatically check for grammar, mechanics, style, usage, and spelling errors. And you can see here, these purple issues here, these errors, this is the ETS Rater, letting you know that there possibly might be an article error here. So it is artificial intelligence. It's not 100%. It's very good, and it might help to bring some of those issues and highlight them for you so that you bring them to your attention. But if you decide you don't like them, you can get rid of them if you want. You can click on them and trash them, or you could actually come in here and say, you know what, I don't agree with these article errors, and I don't agree with this wrong article. I'm just going to uncheck usage altogether, and those will all drop off for you. Or you can turn them back on. Okay, so you can see them throughout the page. Any questions about the ETS Rater? Okay. The last thing I wanted to show you here is this little grade or gear icon, rather. I apologize. If we click on that, it's going to open up and give us a couple options. The first is this little I, submission information. If I click on that, it's going to give us our submission details, our submission ID, our timestamp, how many quick marks or comments we've left, word count, page count, that type of thing. If I click on the gear and click on this download button, it's going to give us three options. We can download the original submitted file. So that's going to be a file without any comments, without any similarity, without any ETS Rater. And you can download that and print it up if you want to. You can also choose to download the digital receipt, which is exactly what we just saw by clicking on the little I, but it's a printable form that you can download the timestamp and all that type of good stuff. The last view here is our current view, and I think this is one of the great things that you'll find inside Feedback Studio that you wouldn't find in the classic view. And this is a comprehensive document that includes all of the comments and everything that we've added to this paper. So if I click on current view, it's going to prepare my download for me. And in a couple seconds, it's going to give me my downloaded document. Now this paper was 2 pages. If I open up this document, you'll see that it's now 8. Here's my title by my student. Here's my timestamp, my submission ID, word count, character count. And here's my paper with all of my comments, all of my ETS Rater errors, all included, as well as the similarity. So a student can open this up, an instructor can open this up. It'll give you all of your matches, let you know what you match to, what percentages to internet sources, publications, or student papers, any of your exclusions that you've chosen on the assignment level. Here's our grade along with all of our comments per page, our E-Rater errors. And then lastly, depending on whether you used a grading form or a rubric, it's going to include that for them as well, so that they can have a better understanding of why they received the grade that they did. And I think this is a really wonderful document that a student can print up, bring to a writing lab, bring to a tutor, or possibly to your office hours, and talk to you about why they received the grade that they did. Any questions about this current view document? I'm going to leave it open just in case we want to come back to it. Here is our original Feedback Studio. Any questions before we jump out of here? I think the next thing we're going to try and do is to run through the different assignment level options when creating an assignment. Jessica, did you have any questions about Feedback Studio before we jump into that, or did anybody else have any?
We're doing well over here.
Okay, great. Oh, the last thing I'll mention too, once you've opened up Feedback Studio, you can move on from student papers, from student to student this way if you want to, so you don't have to close it out each time you walk through a student's paper. Or you can click the little arrow button and it'll automatically move you on to the next student submission. Okay, so at this point, if there aren't any questions, I'm going to stop sharing and let Jessica share her screen so that we can walk through those assignment options.
Perfect.
Okay, you should be able to share your screen now.
All right. Very good. Can you guys all see my screen now?
I can see it.
It should say personal sandbox. Okay. So what Ryan has just gone over is he's gone over all of the new features within the Turnitin interface. And I wanted to show you all real fast, just quickly, what it's going to look like in D2L this summer when we've turned this on. And so where I am is I'm in my personal sandbox, and I've set up a few Dropbox folders here. And if I were to go into a Dropbox folder, and just like before, it gives you a little icon here showing that Turn It On is enabled. I'm sorry, Turn It In is enabled. And if I go to my drop-down arrow here and edit this folder, you'll notice that one thing has changed. Before, we just had one simple little box here to check to enable Turn It In. And the biggest change now is that we have a brand new tab up here. So before we only had the 3 tabs, now we're going to have the 4th tab. And so for this particular Dropbox assignment, I would go to the Turn It In tab. And here are my options for Turn It In. And when you first set up an assignment, this box will not be checked. And you will just simply need to check this box to enable Turn It In. And what I'd like Ryan to go over real quickly is, this is also a new feature within D2L, is we have more options for Turn It In, and you'll find that there's a lot more options than we had before. And so these are things that you've normally, you set up in the Properties tab. To answer the question earlier, you can set your max grade points, your restrictions, instructions, all of that good stuff. The optional settings here is the new feature. So if Ryan, if you wouldn't mind going through just what these mean real quickly, that would be great.
No problem. Can you scroll back up to the top for me? I just want to, I know some people might already know some of this, but just in case there's any new users with us, I think obviously we know what the title and the max grade is. One thing I wanted to mention there, you can see we have a start date and due date, which I think everybody understands. The feedback release date, that is the date that students will be able to see the comments or quick marks that you've added to their paper. So until that date passes, they won't see any of your comments. So if you want them to have immediate access once you've graded their paper to their comments, you can make the feedback release date 1 minute after the start date. It can be any date as long as it's after the start date. So just keep that in mind. If a student's telling you, I'm not seeing any of your comments, I don't know what's happening, I can see the similarity score, but none of your comments, there's a good chance the feedback release date just hasn't passed yet. So keep that in mind. So our first option there, allow submission of any file type. So we do allow students to, if you choose yes, they can literally submit any file type they want, and we'll accept it. The issue becomes whether or not that file type has text that we can run an originality report against. So if they upload an image file, you would be able to see the image file inside Feedback Studio. You would be able to see and add comments or quick marks to that image, but we couldn't run an originality score because there's no text in the image file. If they upload an Excel sheet or a PowerPoint or a Word doc or a PDF and it contains text, we'll be able to check against it. So just keep that in mind. If you choose no, it's only going to accept submission file types that we can run an originality score on. The next option there is allow late submissions. This will allow students to submit late, but it's only going to allow a student to submit late if they have not submitted anything at all. So if they've submitted something and they're looking to resubmit late, they can't resubmit late. It's only for students who have not submitted at all. The next option there compares submitted papers against the following sources. We have those 3 options there. Student paper repository. We have over 750 million student papers in our repository. Current and archived website content. We have over 6 billion websites archived, and we're crawling more every day. We also check against periodicals, journals, and publications. So we partner with all the big publishers, your McGraw-Hill, Pearson, Cengage. We partner with Gale, library databases, and we run against all of their stuff as well. So you can choose to run against all 3. You can choose to run against one, but you have to choose at least one for us to give you an originality score. If you choose none, they'll be able to submit their paper and you can still add comments and quick marks, but there won't be any originality score because there was nothing to check against. Okay. The next option, originality report generation and resubmissions. You've got three options there. The first is to generate reports immediately. Resubmissions are not allowed, so that's kind of a one and done. Generate reports immediately. Resubmissions are allowed until the due date. And then generate reports on the due date. Resubmissions are allowed until the due date. So keep in mind, if you're allowing for resubmissions, there's a couple of things. First, if they submit and then they resubmit, it's going to overwrite their previous submission. So you won't be able to go back and see what they submitted the first time versus their fifth time. It's going to overwrite each submission and give them a new originality score. If you're looking to try and if you want to make sure that they did a first draft and a final draft and you want to be able to see the differences, you're going to want to create two separate assignments, a first draft assignment and a final draft assignment. One thing though, with the first draft assignment, and we're going to see it in a little bit, you have the ability to choose on the assignment level whether or not you want your student submissions to go into our student repository or not. If you're doing a first draft assignment, you're going to want to choose no, because otherwise it's going to check against itself on the final draft. And I hope that makes sense. So if you choose, and Jessica's highlighting it right now, and I'm sorry to jump ahead, but I just wanted to bring this up with submissions. You have the ability to choose that the papers are entered into our paper repository or they're not stored at all. If you do a first draft assignment, choose do not store. Because if you have a store that first draft, their final draft is going to get checked against their first draft, and that similarity score is going to be up in the 90s somewhere. So just something to keep in mind if you're planning to do first draft, final draft assignments. And I'm sorry, I took that away from that top one, the one we were just on, Jessica, originality report generation and resubmissions. Something to keep in mind. The other thing I want to mention too with resubmissions. Currently, there is a 24-hour delay with resubmissions. And that's something we put in place on purpose because we were finding some students were trying to game the system. And what I mean by that is they would submit a paper, have a high originality score, go back, change some words, change some of the order, resubmit, get their new score. Go back, change, and just keep hacking away at it. Even though it was all plagiarized content, by just changing the words, pulling up the thesaurus, using different words and that type of thing. And by delaying them by 24 hours, we found that really cut down on that type of gaming. Now, I will say that this is going to change in the near future. We've had this in place, I think, for a little over a year now, and we had a lot of instructors say that it just wasn't necessary. So we're planning to take that away sometime in the near future. I can't tell you exactly when that's been. It hasn't been announced to us yet, but that is something we're working on. But for the meantime, just keep in mind, if you allow resubmissions, if your student submits and then they resubmit, it's going to take 24 hours for them to get a new originality score. And what we found is that students then get very frustrated. They don't understand why they're not getting their score. They keep resubmitting over and over again, which means they're starting that clock again. Then they might come to you as the instructor and say, why, what's happening? It's not working. So one thing I always suggest maybe in the description of the assignment is to maybe let them know resubmissions subject to a 24-hour delay or just something like that so they understand why they're not getting it and they're not coming to you. Again, this will be changing in the future, but right now that still exists. So I wanted to make sure and let you know. Any questions about that? Okay, the next options here are exclusion options. So we have the ability to exclude bibliographic material or quoted material or small matches. Remember, we did that in the paper inside Feedback Studio. Exactly. So if you don't want to make an assignment level choice, keep in mind you can do it on a paper by paper basis. But if you do know that you want to exclude those, you can. That next option down there allows students to view originality reports. That's just whether or not you want students to be able to see their score. Usually, I would say typically that's a yes, but sometimes there's instructors that don't want them to see that. So you do have that option. The next option, submissions to this assignment will be stored in, like we talked about, you have the ability to choose whether or not it's stored in our paper repository or not stored at all. If it's a first draft assignment, I suggest do not store at all, just so that final draft isn't matched against itself. The next option is the add peer mark assignment. So this is, I alluded to this a little earlier, and I apologize. You do have the ability to click yes or no. Unfortunately, even if you click yes, the peer mark is not working, so we've kind of disabled it. So I suggest just leaving it as no. We're hoping to have this fixed by the end of summer, but right now peer mark's not working. I apologize. But it is still an option in there, so just leave it as no for now. Here's where you have the ability to attach a rubric to that assignment. So if you remember, I opened it up and I had that macroeconomics rubric in there. That's because when I created my assignment, I attached the rubric. Keep in mind, this is not the D2L rubric. This is a Turnitin rubric. So you can see there, Jessica has the little icon over the Launch Rubric Manager button. That'll open up that rubric manager and give you the ability to import that RBC format from our rubric library, or download or create your own rubric. But this is where you attach it so that you and your students can see the rubric. Keep in mind, this is going to, once you create rubrics, it's going to be added to your overall Turnitin account. So if you create a new course and you come down and you've added rubrics, you'll see those rubrics again in following courses. The next option here is enable grammar checking using that ETS E-Rater. So if you leave it as yes, you'll see those purple error messages, and you'll have your students will have the ability to click on those messages, see your comments, and also click on an online handbook that will open up for them so that they can look a little more deeply into why there was an error. And you can choose the categories that it's going to check on. You can see spelling, grammar, usage, mechanics, and style. They're all checked, so it's going to check for all of those. If you choose no on the E-Rater, it will disappear altogether. You just won't see that layer inside Feedback Studio. Okay? And then the final option here is, would you like to save these options as your defaults for future assignments? So if you know that your future assignments you're gonna use the same options, go ahead and click yes. It'll save you a ton of time, and you'll be able to go right through these and create your assignments. So that's basically it. Once you've gone through those options and you click submit, your students will be ready to start submitting their papers to run through Turnitin, and you'll then be ready to open up Feedback Studio and grade them.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan.
You're very welcome.
I feel like we had a chat. Oh, never mind. Oh, we have one question. Hold tight, please. Yes.
We have to go through D2L, but our only option is to go straight to right now and do both, and we can set up a class and have assignment straight through Turnitin and my students create something else. Can you still do that?
So the question was, is the only way to access Turnitin through D2L? Currently, we can access Turnitin through the website itself and not just D2L. And I believe that's still going to be the case, where we can access it through D2L.
Yes, that is the case. Technically, when you create your first assignment in D2L, it's going to create you a Turnitin account based on that email address. So if you went to Turnitin.com and click login, you could click forgot password. It would give you a new password, and you could log in to Turnitin, what we call our native environment online. But remember, anything you do in there will not flow to D2L. So we kind of suggest you stick to D2L, because if you go in there and make any changes, you won't see it on your end.
Especially the grading part.
Exactly. Yeah, anything to do with assignments or any of that. If you go in there and add your own rubric, you should still see it in D2L. But assignment level stuff just won't, there's no talking back and forth between the two systems.
So the peer mark only not working in D2L, or is peer mark gone?
The second question was, if PeerMark isn't working with D2L, is PeerMark working within Turnitin?
Yes, PeerMark is working fine. D2L is one of the learning management systems we're still working with. You know, PeerMark works in Canvas, PeerMark works in Blackboard. We're just fine-tuning it now for Desire to Learn, just to make sure it's not buggy or causing any problems.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. I did see a message here from Tom. Will the name Turnitin we are seeing in D2L change to the new product name Feedback Studio? Yes and no. When you open up and you click on that score inside the assignment and it opens up Feedback Studio, you'll see Feedback Studio. This little tab, however, will still say turn it in. So I know that's a little confusing and I apologize for that. But that will stay the same. You'll see turn it in on this level. When you open up Feedback Studio, that's when you'll see Feedback Studio.
Okay. Barbara, did you have a question?
Because I also work with Cengage, I heard him say that partner with Cengage, so then I have to figure out how to get the grading and everything kind of in as well. How does all that kind of like get over there?
Okay, our question was, we use Cengage in a course, and Cengage works with Turnitin and D2L to do grading. Is that correct?
Are you using, I believe it's Enhanced Insight that uses Turnitin from Cengage, is that correct?
Well, I'm just curious that we are using Cengage for
So the Cengage, that's part of our partnership with Cengage. And through Cengage, we have access to their Gale databases. So in one of their products called Enhanced Insight, they use Turnitin inside that. So yes, you could technically still access Turnitin through Enhanced Insight if you're using that from Cengage. But this is available to everybody using D2L regardless of Cengage users or not.
Okay, we'll have to play with it and test it and stuff.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, the crew is good here.
Okay.
I don't see any other chats.
All right. Well, if anything pops up, Jessica, obviously, you know, you can email me anytime. I will send you this recording, so you'll have this one and the last one we did as well. But otherwise, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time. I hope you found this helpful. And otherwise, just have a great weekend.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Real fast, we did have one last question.
Yeah, shoot.
I'm just trying to figure out as a faculty member how I get into that Turnitin studio where I set up all of it. I walked in late, so I might have missed it.
Sure. And I'm not sure if you guys were able to hear, but the question was, how do we set up and how do we access oh my goodness, my tongue is tied, Feedback Studio. And we'll be sending out documentation on how this translates into our D2L and how to set it up in the new look. The only thing that's really going to be different is this tab right here. So you'll set up a Dropbox the same way you would before, and to enable the Turnitin, you just check this box.
But what I'm asking is that, like, how do you create those sets of my set of marks and all that sort of thing? How do I get to that?
Okay, and so then from here, and I hope I answer your question here, but if we just click into this, I believe I have a document. So once the students have submitted the document, then just as before, you'll have this little number deal here. And if I click into this, that will take me to the Turnitin Feedback Studio. And that's where you can set up all of the quick marks and do all of that.
So I need to have a document in there so I can set up my
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
So
that.
the question was, how do we get in before a document is submitted to set up the quick marks? And I'm thinking that you're just going to have to log in through the Turnitin website. Is that correct, Ryan?
So, boy, that's a good question. You can log in and enter your quick mark manager inside Turnitin.com. That's correct. So if you wanted to go that route ahead of time, you could. If you have your shell, your D2L shell up and running, but you haven't created any assignments, you know, the easiest way might be to just create a dummy assignment. Submit a paper, go in and, work with your quick mark manager, and then just delete the assignment altogether. But it's up to you, whatever you think is easier to do.
So to do that, possibly you could log in as the demo student and upload a assignment as the demo student as this kind of dummy assignment, like he was just saying. That's how I put this document in my my Dropbox. And then I can go in and you can kind of set that stuff up ahead of time. Or the second option was just to log into Turnitin.com
Yeah.
in your account and then set it up for that particular assignment.
And then if I save my quick marks, I can access them anytime I go in Turnitin.
So the question was, once he's saved his quick marks, he can access those quick marks anytime he's in Turnitin, correct, Ryan?
That's right. And it's going to follow you from course to course as well, because you're going to, once you create your first assignment, it will create you a Turnitin account. You're not even going to be aware of it, but that's what it's going to do. So that as you build out your rubric library or your quick mark manager library, it's yours. And as long as your email is associated with whatever course you're teaching, you will still see all that material as well.
Very good. I think that's answered our questions. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, sure.
Very good. Well, thank you guys for your time this afternoon, and we appreciate Ryan and his time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. This is Jessica Evans again. And thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bye-bye.